All right, welcome in episode 3 of Orange Juice Sports Pod. Sorry for the long wait in between episodes. Was kind of celebrating that Eagles Super Bowl for extended period of time. Was home for the parade last weekend, so just haven't had really any time to sit down and get this done. Today I want to talk about a few things. We're going to do a few episodes this week, so we're going to keep the segments a little bit brief here. But we just had NBA All-Star game this past weekend and all the All-Star festivities. Super Bowl obviously happened a week and a half ago or so. And what else we got? We got March Madness coming up right around the corner, less than a month away from now. So I want to talk about my seeding right now, how the bracket's going to lay out. They just released the committee did the top 16 teams that they have seeded right now and how they would seed the um, top four seed lines. So I want to show you how mine compares to that. This is all updated from going into tonight's game. So tonight's games don't really have much impact yet. There's only a couple that would impact anyways, and we'll get into those. I'm also going to show you some things I've kind of thought about over the All-Star break, and then we'll talk about the Super Bowl just briefly at the end. All right, let me share my screen real quick. Okay. All right, so let's get into our seed lines here. So um, our bubble is on a different sheet, but we'll get into that too. So first off, our one seeds are the consensus here. This is exactly what we had. The committee had the only change we have in the seed lines 1 through 4 is Michigan State jumping Kansas. The Kansas lost the night they released the top 4 seeds. They lost at Utah, which is a miserable loss. So I dropped them all the way to towards the bottom of the 5 seed line. And they're closer to a 6 than they are a 4. And not just by the actual rank, but by the standard of what they have to do. I think there's a pretty significant gap now between the 4 seed line and the 5 seed line. Like where you got Missouri at the top of the 5 seed line and Michigan State at the bottom of the 4 seed line, there's a pretty significant gap there. Michigan State has done it all year, proving themselves to be a top 4 seed team. Missouri's starting to heat up. They're in a good spot right now, but then you get a little bit lower in that list. You got Marquette and Kansas. They've been tailing off lately. Maryland is similar to Missouri. I like those 2 teams the best out of that 5 seed line. But let's go through it. Each seed line. Auburn, Duke, Alabama, and Florida in that order right now in the 1 seed lines. Auburn and Duke are pretty much locked into that 1 seed. Unless something crazy happens, it says barring something crazy, lock number 1. Um, unless they go on a miserable losing streak or whatever the case may be, lose 3 of their last 5 and then lose first round of their conference tournament, which is not going to happen the way these teams have been playing and the way Duke's schedule's lined up. They're going to get the 1 seeds, and Auburn's most likely going to get the number 1 overall seed because they have 13 quad 1 wins, and the next highest team has, I think, 7 or 8. So it's not really comparable there. Duke, like I said, easy conference. They should roll through the ACC tournament. Alabama, Florida, and then my top 2 seeds in Tennessee and Houston. Those teams, you could start to shift some things around. I get why Houston isn't as high as I would have them personally. I have them as the 6 right now. The committee had them as the 8th overall team going into the weekend, but then teams lost. Purdue had a really bad week. So I have them at 6. I personally think they're better than Tennessee, but I get they don't have as many quality wins as Tennessee. That's what happens when you play in the SEC. You get more opportunities and more wins through those opportunities. But I think they have the best opportunity to move up. Houston has a difficult schedule coming up, but they're games that they should win. They play Iowa State. They play Kansas again. They play Texas Tech again. They can get a little bit of redemption against Texas Tech. And then they have a couple games like at Arizona State, a Baylor in there, Cincinnati, that are going to be like quad 2, quad 1 wins possibly. Baylor might be a quad 1 because it's on the road. But those are quad 2 wins. You get, excuse me, you get those quad 2 wins. That's still a good quality win. So Houston has a lot of opportunities to move up, and I think they have the clearest pass. Oh my Lord, excuse me. I think they have the clearest path to winning their conference compared to Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida. Purdue, they're really close to that 3 seed line. They've struggled this week. They lost at Michigan and then got rinsed at home against Wisconsin. Not a good spot for them. And they play Michigan State this week. So possibility into dropping a 3rd straight game because that game is on the road. So Purdue hanging on by a thread in that 2 seed line. Texas A&M's 30. I think they're them and Houston. I would almost lock in as 2 seeds. I think it's going to be really hard for Houston to get a 1 seed just because of the teams who are above them, and because of how little the committee and all these bracketologist people have been punishing the SEC teams for losing in conference games, like Tennessee, Florida, Alabama. They could lose to whoever, Texas A&M or Mississippi State, and it just hasn't seemed to impact them. They haven't really jumped up or down from those losses. Um, so I think it's going to be tough. I think Houston, in their last 6 games, they have 4 quad 1 opportunities. You go 5-1 in the last 6, and you make a nice run or win your conference, they'll get the 1 seed, because there's just nothing those other teams can do because only one of them can win the SEC. Let's move to our 3 seed line. Iowa State, they're my top 3 seed right now. They're right there. They're right there. They had that rough little 3, 4 game stretch, and everyone seems to have forgotten about them. Iowa State's still a good basketball team. All right. I think they're going to end up with a 2 seed. And again, this is because in the Big 12, you are going to have a much clearer path to winning games in the conference tournament. Whereas Florida might have to play Kentucky in the second round or in their first matchup because they're going to have a bye. They're going to be the 2 or 3 seed in the conference. And then Kentucky's going to be like a 7 or 8 seed. And you have to play a fully healthy Kentucky in your first game. That's not easy. Whereas Iowa State might get a game against Cincinnati or TCU or West Virginia or very winnable game. Um, so I think Iowa State is really starting to fall under the radar, which is a good spot for them. I think they're better under the radar. I like them better when they're under the radar and not that top 3, top 4 team. Wisconsin, they are on fire right now. And I've said this before, tweeted it a couple times. If you look at the top 4 or 5 teams in the Big Ten, we have Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Maryland, Wisconsin. They're 2 games back in the lead, but they have a very easy rest of the way to go. I think they play Illinois this week, which is tough. But outside of that, comparatively speaking to Michigan State, who has to play Michigan twice, has to play Purdue, to Michigan, who has to play Maryland, they have to play Illinois, they have to play Michigan State, they have to play all these tough teams at Nebraska. Wisconsin has a much calmer road to finish off the season. So they could sneak into that 1 or 2 spot in the conference. We have Kentucky as my third 3 seed. They're struggling right now just because of injuries. Apparently, my Kentucky insider said they have not had a completely healthy roster since December 14th. That was a long time ago. That is over 2 months ago at this point. And it doesn't look like they are close to being healthy. Lamont Butler seems to be out a couple more weeks. Jackson Robinson's out. They're struggling right now. This could be trouble because they have a very difficult schedule. They have Alabama and Auburn on the horizon, but then they have a game like a Vanderbilt this week. They have to play at Oklahoma, LSU. These are games that you have to win because they could find themselves slipping if you lose one of those games to a Vandy, an Oklahoma, LSU. You're going to find yourself in the 5 seed line. And before we get there, 5 seed line is not where you want to be. And it's always a popular upset pick. But if you look at these 12 seeds this year, golly, you don't want to be there. Do not want to be there. Texas Tech, they're doing what they need to do. They're winning basketball games. This next 3 teams, Michigan, Arizona, Texas Tech, they've been kind of mixed around, whatever. A lot of bracketologies have them differently. Right now, I have Texas Tech where they are, Arizona at the top 4 line, and Michigan as the second highest 4 line. Joe Lenardi just released his on ESPN. He has it pretty much the complete flipped. He has Michigan, Texas Tech, and then Arizona. But I'm going to stick with this for now just because Michigan has a lot more opportunities to gain more quality wins. So I think they have more room to go up. Whereas if I put them there now, it's harder to move up from a bottom 3 to a 2 than it is from a 4 to a 3. So we're just going to try to keep it as realistic as possible here. St. John's and Michigan State round out the top 4 seeds. St. John's it's really, they control their own destiny here. The Big East sucks. It's really bad this year. Marquette is unimpressive. UConn stinks. Creighton, I like Creighton, but you just never know what you're going to get with them. That's just kind of how it goes with these high octane 3-point shooting teams. You never know what you're going to get. Michigan State, you got a tough stretch coming up. Purdue this week, Michigan this week, and then you got to play Michigan last game of the season as well. So they have a really tough end of the season. This is a huge week for them, especially coming off a week where you lose to Indiana and you beat Illinois. They need to show some sort of consistency. This offense has been just a mystery so far this year. The defense, you know what you're going to get. They're going to play good defense every single game, but can you score? Can you keep up? Who's going to be that guy? They really haven't shown. Jace Richardson's done it a couple times where he's shown he can be a baller. He can put up 30, 25, 30 points in a big spot, but we haven't seen it consistently. And they play too many guys for somebody to be able to step it up. So I'm going to be interested to see how they do against two really, really talented offenses in Purdue and Michigan. Let's jump down to our 5 seeds. And like I said, I have a very, very big drop from the 4 seed line to the 5 seed line. On my little trend notes thing here, it says closer to a 6 than a 4. And that goes for all 4 of these teams. They are all closer to being a 6 seed than they are to jumping a Michigan State, St. John's, a Michigan, or an Arizona for a 4 seed. So we have Missouri, Marquette, Kansas, and Maryland. Um, Now, this is kind of like a 50-50 here for me. Missouri and Maryland, I like a lot. Now, can I see them get upset? Absolutely. If they're in the 5 seed line, I could see them get upset strictly because of how talented these 12 seeds are this year. Marquette and Kansas, I fully expect to get upset. Now, there's a difference there. I could see Missouri and Maryland get upset, but I don't expect it. Marquette and Kansas, I would be honestly surprised if they won. I think both of them are complete garbage, especially Kansas. I think they suck, and I've said it all year. I freaking hate them. So let's move to our 6. Illinois, the most inconsistent team in the nation. You never know what you're going to get. They could score 102 against you. They can go 6 minutes without scoring, like we saw against Michigan State this past week. They were in the driver's seat in that game, and then they don't score for the last 5 minutes and change in the game. I don't know how you do that. How do you go over 5 minutes in a game that you're winning at home without scoring a single point? It baffles me. Mississippi State, they just keep hanging around. It seems like when they lose, all these bracketologies drop them to hell. They drop them to the 7 seed. They drop them to brink 8 seed, and they just keep finding ways to get these big wins. They beat Ole Miss again. That's 2 games in a row, or 2 times in a row this year. They sweep the series against Ole Miss, a rival. That's big time. So I have Mississippi State sitting at that second 6 seed, and they're getting right there on Illinois' heels. I could totally see them get up to a 5 seed just because they have so many opportunities to win big games. Louisville, they had a tough loss a couple weeks ago to Georgia Tech. I think they've won 5 or 6 straight since then. So they're just gradually moving up. It's going to be hard for a team from the ACC to get a significant jump or see progress quickly just because of the lack of talent and skill and just rigor in that conference. All these teams are pretty mid, so you're not going to see a full seed jump if they go 2-0 in a week. It really just depends on what the rest of these teams do in front of them, what the teams behind them do, because they could get jumped by a team behind them who might have gone 2-0 while they went 2-0, but they just have better wins because they're in a better league. Ole Miss is one of those teams. Ole Miss, though, something I've noticed about Ole Miss this year is they've been good. They've stolen a couple games. They beat Kentucky, right? They beat some solid teams, but they just can't really get over that hump. Like you lose 2 to Mississippi State, you lose to Texas A&M, you're losing all these like not the top 3, not the top 4. We expect you to lose, so that's fine. But you got to beat those middle of the pack, that 5 to 9 in the SEC, and they just haven't really been able to do that consistently. Now they'll steal 1 or 2 here and there, but you can't just rely on beating the LSU's and the Arkansas of the conference and expect to get a 5 or 4 seed. It's just not going to happen. You got to be a consistent winner in that league. So Ole Miss is in a weird spot for me. This isn't a team that I really trust when it comes to March. Let's go to 7 seeds. We got UCLA, Memphis, Clemson, and St. Mary's. It's really a crapshoot from like the 6 seed to probably I would say the 10. Even if you want to talk about the 11s, it's kind of a crapshoot. All these teams can go wherever the hell you want because they just have not been able to show a consistent stretch. So UCLA, we were a little bit worried about them. Mick Cronin had that complete meltdown after they lost the 2 games at home. Got just demoralized by Michigan, and then they come back and they lose 3 more on the road, and they kind of found their footing a little bit. They lost to Illinois last week, but they were down 16 late, and they kept fighting. They only ended up losing by like 3 or 4 points. It's a team that I really do like. They're going to play good defense. If they can find that consistency in the offense, find a guy that they can rely on, they have the pieces. It's just they got to figure out a guy that they can rely on for UCLA. Memphis. Good Lord, that's a bad loss this weekend. Jesus, you cannot lose to Wichita State. I don't care if you're on the road. I don't care if you're playing on a boat outside, wherever the hell. You can't lose to Wichita State. That dropped them an entire seed line. They were firm in the 6 seed. They were closer to a 5 than they were a 7. And then they went and lost to freaking Wichita. That's brutal. I get it's overtime. I get it's a road game, but Jesus, you can't do it. That's a bad loss for them. Clemson. We talked about Louisville, very similar. ACC, you lost to Georgia Tech a couple weeks ago. You've picked up some wins lately. Just keep winning. Just keep winning. It doesn't matter if you're going to be a 6 seed, 7 seed, just stay out of the 5 seed line and you'll be good. If they just keep winning, I think they'll be all right. Then we have St. Mary's. The story for St. Mary's is like they don't do anything to like boost their resume. They just beat the teams on their schedule because they're in a weak conference. They're relying on every other team, which has worked for them, being ass. All these teams from the 6 to 8 to 9 to 10 seed lines have just not been consistent, and St. Mary's consistently will win games. They are going to be first place in the West Coast Conference unless something crazy happens. I would be very surprised if they weren't. So I could see St. Mary's jump up to the 6 seed line. I think they're going to stay in the 7 most likely, but it's possible they're definitely going to be within that 6 to, I'd say at least, or at the furthest down 8 seed line. That seems like that's going to be their home spot for this year. The 8s and 9s, we have Creighton, Oregon, Baylor, and Gonzaga. Creighton, I really like. I think you can put them as a 7 instead of St. Mary's. I have them as an 8 for now, just because they're coming off that loss. Oregon, they're coming back. They're figuring it out a little bit. They got a big game this week. We'll get into that later. Baylor, another team who has a big game this week. Both of them, I think, are teams that you do not want to see under your 1 seed. If you're a huge Duke or a big Alabama or a big Florida fan, Auburn, I think you'd be fine. But Creighton, Baylor, Oregon, you don't want to see those guys on your bracket. You want to see them move up a little bit, maybe get to the 7 seed, maybe get to the 6 seed. You don't want to see them in that 8-9 game because my goodness, their ceilings are very high. Their floors are low, but they have very high ceilings. And all three of those teams have fan bases that will travel. All right, Gonzaga. Gonzaga is another team that's on my shit list. Them in Kansas, I think they suck. They're struggling in the West Coast Conference. I don't think they've done that in my entire lifetime. This team is not good. They have all the talent in the world, but they just can't put the pieces together. Gonzaga, I don't trust them. They need to win out. They're going to play Washington State this week on the road. It's a game that they could slip up in. And if they do, watch out. That might drop them a whole seed and a half to a 10 seed. It's very possible because if these teams behind them win and they fuck around and lose to Washington State, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm tired of getting all these excuses. The bracket matrix stuff, they all love them. The Ken Palm, the net rating, it's bullshit. They're not good. All right. Don't buy into it because they're a big name. Don't buy into it. All right, 9 seeds. We got New Mexico, Ohio State, UConn, Utah State. New Mexico, big win over Utah State this weekend. They've really had a stranglehold on the Mountain West this season. Every time they seem to have a big game, whether it's San Diego State, Boise State, New Mexico, or Utah State, Colorado State, they take care of business. That's big time. They're going to keep carving their way up the board, maybe getting to that 8-7 seed line. Just keep taking care of business. They're doing a very nice job. Ohio State, seeing where they are now compared to where they were a month and a half ago, this is a different team. Took Michigan down to the wire at home. It's a game you'd like to win. Obviously, you're only down 2 with 15 seconds left. You airball floater to send it to overtime. That's a game you want, but they competed well and they've been playing really good basketball lately. They're going to make a nice run in the Big Ten tournament for sure. I think they're pretty much a lock. They're going to have to win a couple rinky-dink games towards the end of the season, but their schedule is lined up very nicely for them. UConn. This is the third team on my shit list. They suck too. When Liam McNeely came back, he scored 40 and everyone went gaga. They were like, oh my goodness, UConn, this is what we've been waiting. No, they just lost to Seton Hall, man. Give it a rest. They stink. All right. This is UConn, Kansas, Gonzaga. All of them are garbage. Don't fucking pick them. They're terrible. Don't fucking drink the Kool-Aid. It's not going to work. If you lose to Seton Hall, mind you, Seton Hall has like 6 wins this year. They're the DePaul of the Big East this year. You can't lose that game. I don't care if Liam McNeely's playing on one leg. You can't lose that game. UConn's going to slowly keep slipping. They got a tough game against Villanova this week. I don't care if it's at home. It's a very tough game. Villanova's playing desperate right now, trying to claw their way into this bubble conversation that they think they deserve to be in. That's going to be a tough game for them. UConn's got to watch out. They're playing on their heels right now. Utah State, they lost to New Mexico again. I think they're overrated. They're sitting in the 9 seed. I could see them slip back to the 10, maybe 11. Yeah, Mountain West is catching up to them. I don't think they're a top 2 team in the conference, especially the way San Diego State's been playing lately. So I got Utah State at a 9. 10 seeds, Nebraska. My goodness, they just keep finding ways to win, don't they? Nebraska was down 20, maybe more than 20. It was like 20, 25 points at Northwestern this past weekend at the half. They somehow found a way to win. I don't know well how the hell they did it. Bryce Johnson just keeps finding ways to get them more wins. Nebraska looking really good. They are very close to being in lock status. West Virginia, Oklahoma. I have them sitting as like firm 10 seeds, and then we got 10 seed Texas just beat Kentucky. Kentucky's banged up, but still a big win. You could flip them and Vandy, whichever you'd like. I give Texas the benefit of the doubt just because of the big win. And then I have Vandy and Drake as my two buy seeds in the 11 spot. Drake's a weird one just because they lost that game to Bradley. I worry for Drake just because they are a small conference team, that the committee is going to see them if they don't win their conference tournament, obviously, which I think they should be able to take care of business. And that if they don't win their conference tournament, they could get screwed. They could get absolutely screwed. Um, you see it often with these teams like Indiana State last year, same conference, just got left out because they're a small conference team. They don't have as many opportunities to win big games. Luckily, Drake had a pretty solid non-conference schedule for a small school, and they did well in that non-conference schedule. So hopefully for Drake, they can just take care of business and run the table. And God forbid they don't win the conference tournament. Hopefully they get to the final and sure up a spot for themselves. Let's see what else we got. We got San Diego State, Wake Forest, BYU, and Arkansas to round out the final four 11 seeds. San Diego State's a team I'd watch out for. They're playing really good ball at the right time. San Diego State seems to be that one Mountain West team that always gets to the tournament and they actually do something when they get there. We've seen Boise get there. We've seen Utah State get there. We've seen New Mexico get there, and they just can never get a win. Colorado State can never get a win. San Diego State always competes and does well in the tournament. March is their time. Brian Dutcher's been here. He's done that. He knows how to coach in March. He's been around a long time. I really like San Diego State. I think they're the closest of these four teams to a bye. Then we got Wake Forest, BYU, and Arkansas. We'll talk more about some of these other bubble teams next. Let's see what else we got. So right off the bubble, Georgia, SMU, Indiana, Xavier, and then we got our two small conference teams. We got UC Irvine and UC San Diego. For either of them, it's just if you're not an auto bid, because let's assume one of them is going to win their conference tournament. Can the other one get the outright bid? I really doubt it. My guy at T3 is so confident in them, and I love that. I really wish I had that same confidence, but I've seen this story a million times where the small school has 3 losses, 4 losses, 2 losses, whatever, and they don't win their conference, and the committee says, "Oh, here's a 10-loss Georgia team from the SEC, but they played a really difficult schedule. Let's put them in." And it's just they end up getting the 1 or 2 seed in the NIT, and everyone forgets about them. I think that's what we're going to see happen this year. I'm hoping not, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so let's talk about some games we got for each of these teams this week. The 1 seed's pretty much standard, like nothing's going to change. Alabama could pretty much lock themselves as a 1 seed with a win at Missouri this week. They'll probably be a 2 or 3 point underdog at Missouri. That's a big game for them. Florida should take care of business at Oklahoma. This is only going up until Wednesday because I'm going to do another show on Wednesday for the rest of the week, just to break it down a little bit more. Houston goes to Arizona State. That's a good opportunity for them. Big spot here. Texas A&M's going to Mississippi State. Mississippi State, where do we have them right now? We have them as a 6 seed. We have Texas A&M as a 2 seed. This is another opportunity for Mississippi State to just keep on plugging, right? You got a game at home. You have a team that's better than you. I'm sorry, they're better than you. Texas A&M's a very good team. That's a spot where Mississippi State can start to chip away at this little deficit they're at the 5 seed, and they can keep climbing up that board. A loss here for Texas A&M doesn't really impact them. It's a road quad 1 loss in the SEC. We've been shown by the committee that they do not care if you're an SEC team and lose on the road. They don't care. So we're going to just scratch that for A&M. It's basically just an exhibition for them. If they win it, great. You keep on climbing and you almost lock yourself into a 2 seed. But if you lose it, you should be fine. Purdue. Now, you will not be fine if you lose to Michigan State. This is a shit show for you. 3 losses in a row. There's not a lot of great opportunities for you down the line to get good wins. This would almost guarantee that they drop to a 3 seed unless they make a nice run, win out, win the Big Ten, and then they can jump back up. But right now, if they lose to Michigan State, I think they're cooked and they're going to be stuck in that 3 seed line. That's huge for Michigan State as well. Michigan State has Michigan this week as well on the road. If you can get this win, then a loss at Michigan hurts you a lot less, but you can't lose 3 or 4 because they lost a game last week as well. Um, Now, losing this game, it's trouble. You're at home. You got to go on the road later in the week. You can't lose. This is the must win. Um, Now, if you're Michigan, you're watching it, you're hoping they win too. So there's a little bit less likeliness they're coming out with as much fire for the next one, but we'll see. Iowa State, easy game. Wisconsin's got Illinois. I don't think losing to Illinois is going to hurt them in any way. It's at home, so you'd obviously like to pick it up, but they've been so hot lately. They're pretty much locked into that 3 seed line for now. Now, Kentucky, huge, 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 huge game. Vandy at home. Vandy is desperate. They are on the bubble. They are sitting in an 11 seed. Kentucky is very injured. They're down 3 of their starting guards. They're down a couple just rotational big men. This is not a good spot for Kentucky. They need to get this win. You lose this game, you're going to find yourself seeping towards that 5 seed line. And the 5 seed line, like we've said, is somewhere you don't want to be because you don't want to see McNeese State. You don't want to see George Mason. You don't want to see Yale. And you don't want to see one of the UC San Diego's or UC Irvines in the tournament first round. I know Kentucky fans cannot handle another double-digit seed upset. They cannot handle it. So that's a very big game. You got Auburn and Alabama on the horizon. That's a must-win game because you know those games are going to be tough without your main guys. Texas Tech got to go to TCU. Just handle your business. Handle your business. It'll be a tough atmosphere. Arizona Baylor, that game is tonight. It's probably going on right now, but we're not worried about that. Baylor, 2-point favorites. This is a huge opportunity for them. They're sitting at that 8 seed line. This could keep climbing them up. This could get them safe of that 9-10 line. A win at Arizona. Arizona, you don't want to lose 2 in a row here. You lost at home to Houston last week. This is an important spot for them. Michigan doesn't play till Friday. St. John's got to play DePaul. Just take care of business. We talked about the Michigan State game. What else do we got? Yeah, it's an easy one. Kansas at BYU. Kansas might die this week. Kansas might fall to a 6 seed this week. Who would have thought Kansas could be a 6 seed? Teams go to die at BYU. Basketball, football, they just take care of business. Those late night 9 o'clock games, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time start times, brutal. That's a tough spot for Kansas. What else do we got? The rest of these are pretty easy. Oregon at Iowa, it's a game you don't want to slip up at. We talked about Gonzaga and Washington State. It's another one. Here's an interesting one for you. Nebraska at Penn State. Nebraska is 1 game away from locking up their status. Don't fuck around at Penn State. They are garbage. You cannot lose that game. Take care of it now so you don't have to stress about it later. Nebraska, go get that win. Don't have as much stress as you had to have against Northwestern. These are teams you are better than. Just take care of business. And then on the bubble, there's not a whole lot to talk about here, but there's a few games if you want to watch out for. SMU at Notre Dame's a tough one. Villanova at UConn, they have a chance to kind of bump themselves up a little bit. I don't really think they have a chance of getting there anyway. Kansas State at Utah, that's tonight. That's a big game for Kansas State if they can steal it. Their backs are against the wall. Pretty much every team below UC San Diego, if they lose a game, you lose like 10% chance, and all of them are sitting at like 35% chance of making it. And it slowly decreases as you go down the list. So that's what we got for now. We'll talk a little bit more about college basketball at the end of the week. The next thing I want to talk about is the NBA All-Star catastrophe weekend. It was, my goodness. Skills competition was a shit show. The dunk contest was mid. 3-point contest was boring. The game itself, I turned it off. Had to go do some business after the first game, and it sucked because Kevin Hart was just yapping the whole time. Mr. Beast made an appearance for some godforsaken reason. It was garbage. It's pretty much what the NBA has been spewing out for the last 3 years. But I have a way to fix this, right? So instead of parading a bunch of bullshit 40-point game, first to 40, whatever it is, 5-on-5 with a bunch of guys who don't want to be there, and rolling out the freshman and sophomore players who don't deserve to be there, how about we just do what the NHL just did? They did their 4 nations. How about we do USA versus the world? All right. Let's look at this potential roster. And this is just off the head, right? We just wrote some down just to give an idea. You got the world team, all right? You got Luca, you got Saint SGA, you got Jamal Murray. You can throw RJ Barrett in there to get some more guards because they don't have a lot of guards. Josh Giddey, throw him in there. Why not? You got Giannis, you got Alperen Sengun, you got Laurie Markkinen, you got Siakam, you got Franz Wagner, Wemby, Jokic, Gobert, Sabonis. Throw Embiid in there if he's gonna fucking play a game every now and then. Why not? Throw him in there. You got the talent, right? That's a good team. All right. That's better than throwing the rising stars out there. All right. USA. Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, LeBron, KD, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, Karl Anthony Towns, Evan Mobley. Book it. Put $1 million on the line. $1 million, not to charity. They did that 2 years ago. They did the charity bullshit. Those guys don't care. They want money for themselves. Come on. They're professional athletes. Throw $1 million in the middle of the court. Tell them, all right, if USA wins, USA still owns the NBA. If the world wins, Jesus, the sky's going to fall for the United States players, right? They don't want to lose that title. It's their league, right? $1 million, book it. Do it next year. It's the only way to fix the league. It's the only way. Get some interest back in it. Nobody cared. It was a laughing stock last night. The fact that we had Kevin Hart talking for 2.5 hours about Shaq looking like a porn star. I mean, what are we doing? It's a fucking kids program, for Christ's sake, and he's talking about that. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Um, the dunk contest also sucks. I give it to Mac McClung and Stefan Castle. They did very nicely. The other two bozos, I don't know who the hell invited them, but I think they both made two dunks out of their 8 tries. It was a joke. They might as well have just had a layup contest, thrown Angel Reese out there at that point. It was ridiculous. But Stefan Castle, that was the best second place performance we've seen in probably 4 or 5 years. Very nicely done. Mac McClung is carrying the dunk contest on his back, and he's not even an NBA player. We got a freaking YouTube NBA player out there to do the dunk contest. So we heard Ja, he tweeted about it. We saw Giannis tweet about it. How about we do some tournament style? Instead of the 4 guys, why don't we just round up like 8 to 12, 8 to 16 guys and do a tournament style? How fucking awesome would it be to go 1 versus 16, 8 versus 9, and just rattle it off? Not this 2 dunk per round thing, 1 dunk, and then move on. That would be beautiful. I think that's what would fix that. You can do it very nicely. And then the 3-point contest is just too quick. Skills competition, just get rid of it. You don't need it. We saw what Wemby and CP3 did. They didn't give a shit to begin with. So just get rid of that. 3-point contest, it's just too short. You get 8 guys and then you take the top 3. It's boring, right? How about we get 8 guys and same thing? Do it tournament style, 1-on-1. You get 1 guy shooting on one side, the other guy shooting on the other end of the court. You got 2 guys going at the same time. They don't know what they have to beat because they're going at the same time. And then bang, next round, 16. You can have 16 shooters if you want. You know how many guys shoot threes now? You got freaking 7-footers shooting 12 threes a game. You might as well add more guys to the league or to the contest instead of having a 25-minute 3-point contest. It's silly. It's silly. So that's what I got for that. Super Bowl, we'll do a little roundup for the Super Bowl. We were pretty accurate on the pod. We did our little Super Bowl predictions. Our picks, our betting picks were really good. We had a final score of 28-17 on here. It was significantly worse than that. In my 21 years of life, I've not seen a Super Bowl that lopsided. The Eagles kicked the shit out of them for the entirety of that game, right? Every single quarter. Mahomes got his little rinky-dink touchdown passes at the end, but they didn't mean shit. Our only bet that we didn't hit two. We didn't hit Mahomes rushing. He had 25, he needed 29, and we didn't hit our under. And our under would have hit if that jerk off didn't start throwing 70-yard bombs when the second team defense was in. But yeah, Eagles, belt the ass, man. Belt the ass. Looks like they're going to be ready to roll for next season. The parade was electric. I'm hearing 1.7 million people there. It was a fantastic time. I had a blast. But on to next year, man. It was a great year. Off to the off season, we'll do an episode for draft, some free agency stuff. We had the T. Higgins news come out today that they're going to franchise tag him. Not sure how that's going to go over. Rumors are saying that maybe they were planning on doing an extension, but that shit never works. So that could be ugly for the Bengals. But right now, the NFL is in a good spot. You got the Eagles at the top of the mountain. Mahomes going to be coming back for revenge next year. Lions are pissed off. They're crying that they would have beat them. Man, it's a good spot for the NFL. They're doing it. They're doing everything right. Um, one little note on the Frozen or the Four Nations thing. That was awesome. USA versus Canada is going to be the championship next later in this week. Um, yeah, everybody was watching that instead of the NBA All-Star shit. So that was pretty good. Well done by the NHL to do something different and get the people excited. USA versus Canada. I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that. Um, they really just should do the same thing, USA versus the world, and it would fix all of the NBA's problems. That's it for today. We brought the juice. Make sure you are checking our Twitter account. We've been on a bit of a heater on our picks. We got the 3-point contest right. We got USA over Canada right. We got the dunk contest right, and All-Star MVP right. And our skills challenge fuckers got disqualified. So that was a tough one. But we've been doing really well lately. Make sure you're checking the picks and tailing them. All right. Subscribe and like for me. And make sure you're bringing the juice the rest of this week. Right. Let's do it.